Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromsø Twilight. This is the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the void, about books, movies, music that I find interesting, that I enjoy, or a combination of the two. And today we're going to be talking about 7 obscure bands or musical artists. I've tried to keep it pretty broad in terms of style, so there's going to be some kind of melodic, more kind of pop stuff. There's going to be some neo-folk, there's going to be some jazz, there's going to be some quite heavy stuff, noisy material, which is what I listen to quite often. So 7 artists, and this is going to be the first of these videos, but hopefully if you enjoy it, I'm going to do more because I have loads of other artists I'd like to mention. I decided to set the criteria for obscure as being under 10,000 listeners on Spotify, 10,000 monthly listeners, but nearly all of these artists have significantly less than that. We're talking about under 1,000 in most cases, certainly under 5,000. You know, this is an obscure channel. You are probably pretty obscure. No music I've ever recorded has had more than like 50 people come to the show, maybe sold 100 CDs in total, 12 monthly listeners maximum on Spotify. So let's celebrate obscurity. Band number 1, Sloss. So I've been a little bit delayed making a new video because I had a terrible week last week. Something quite tragic happened in my personal life, and I was feeling pretty down, so I didn't feel very inspired to make any videos. And I travelled to Oslo on Thursday to do for my psychoanalytical training, and I walked past a bar that I know is a live music bar, like a punk bar and heavy metal bar, called Vaterland. And I just went in and I said, "Is there a band playing tonight?" And the guy sitting by the stairs said, "Yeah, Sloss." And I said, "Who?" And he said, "Sloss," because Sloss means fight in Norwegian. So I said, "Okay, that sounds like punk." And he said, "Yeah, it's pretty punky." So this band basically are a 5-piece. Yeah, they had 2 guitarists, bass player, a drummer, and a vocalist who also plays a keyboard and a little kind of half saxophone. And this is like a very dancey, almost like surf and rock and roll influence kind of punk and hardcore band that have very simple, straightforward lyrics. Like one of their songs is called Dope, like it's called Dope, but in Norwegian, and the lyrics translate to gimme some dope. That's like the whole song. So you get the idea. This is like the vibe of the band. Super enjoyable. It almost reminded me of like a less verbal version of Ian Drury and the Blockheads, but like not as funky. Actually, that's a terrible analogy. Have a little look at these 2 short videos that I made specifically to share this band with you. That was the first song, and then this is the final song. So Sloss have 596 followers on Instagram. They have 230 monthly listeners on Spotify. This band are entirely obscure. So now you know about them. If you like punk music, check them out. You might enjoy it. I really did. If you live in Norway, go and see them live. They're great fun live. And they're also the band that inspired this video. Okay, number 2 is an artist called Anna Roemer. Anna Roemer is from Denmark, I believe. She's a guitarist, but she makes very atmospheric, ambient type music. It's like a cross between ambient music and jazz, I guess, but not like virtuosic jazz, kind of like melodic, and I've already said atmospheric, but atmospheric jazz. She made a really beautiful album called Azure, which came out in 2022, which has several tracks featuring a saxophone player called Ned Firm. Ned Firm played live with her at a festival where I saw her, I think it was last year, and they played a lot of songs from that album, and really, really such a beautiful, beautiful set. I definitely recommend seeing her if you get the opportunity. She also has a new album that came out last year called Blå Regn, which is Blue Rain, um, and she only has 1,456 fans on, no, sorry, monthly listeners on Spotify, 20 fans on Deezer. Do check her out if you're interested in this type of music. It's not like as abstract and ambient as Fenez, but it's kind of like if you think Fenez but more melodic, or Boards of Canada but with no beats, then you might be getting an idea of what kind of universe Anna Roemer is making her music within. Band number three is a recent discovery for me. This is a British band called Pretty Addicted. Pretty Addicted is mostly a one woman project, somebody called Vicious Precious, who has like a kind of like total art project. She's like super gothed out, but she kind of dresses like a sort of goth schoolgirl with black and orange hair. Um, she makes electronic music that is kind of like rave influence, but like goth rave, like very kind of banging, intense, like electronic music. And she sings over the top of it in a kind of vocal fry kind of scream that is somewhere between kind of like a black metal singer and Marilyn Manson, I guess you could say. A lot of the content of her music is kind of about religious trauma, mental health, relational issues. It's very kind of cathartic, um, confessional music. She started out like 10 years ago. I think her first album was this album that's called It All Starts in Childhood or something like that. She has an album, Soul for Sale, which I really like from a couple of years back, and she's just released a new album. She's super prolific. She also makes these kind of like dolls. She gets like dolls and Teletubbies and does like corpse paint and like defaces them and sells them as like objects. She kind of is almost like a performance artist. I recently bought a t-shirt from her, and she sent me this beautiful letter, which is like a handwritten letter, with Hail Satan on the front. Uh, Pretty Addicted. They have 636 monthly listeners on Spotify. They've got 7,000 and something followers on Instagram. Seems to be that she's a little more successful on YouTube because she like makes lots of very low budget but extremely effective music videos. Very creative, very prolific, super gothic, very in your face. I like it. It's one of these kind of things where you probably love it or hate it, but if it sounds appealing already, then you'll probably enjoy it. She's on tour now, so check her out if you get the opportunity. She's touring with a drummer. I'm going to see them in Oslo, their first Norwegian performance in the autumn. Super looking forward to it. Pretty Addicted. Check it out. Number four is the neo-folk inclusion. I like neo-folk a great deal, but if you don't know what it is, it's a genre of music that grew out of industrial music in the late 80s and early 90s. The main kind of practitioners back then were Death in June, Current 93, and a handful of other bands who all kind of knew each other. The thing is that it's known for using a lot of European history, and we're talking about like everything from like heathenry to runes to a lot of stuff around the Second World War. And there's a lot of imagery that kind of flirts with fascism. Some people, like Death in June, play it so close to the whole fascist thing that whether or not they actually are fascists or not is kind of a moot point, because a lot of their audience certainly think that they are. This is a genre of music that a lot of people kind of straight off the bat are uncomfortable with. So this one might not be for you, but I was in Lithuania a few years ago, and I went into a record shop there that had a lot of kind of folk music, specifically Lithuanian and Balkan kind of music, but it was also sort of like had kind of Wiccan objects and magical stuff and kind of folk materials. And there was some vinyl there, including this vinyl, which I kind of found so interesting. And I saw that it was numbered. It was a limited edition, 300 copies. So I didn't want to just go straight ahead and buy it, not knowing what it sounded like. So I listened to it on Bandcamp, and I went back the next day and I got it because it's this kind of really weird, like it's like slow, beautiful folk music with this combination of like a male rasping vocal and a woman singing, and there's like hand drums and guitars and glockenspiels, and this very, like I say, low rasping male vocal. And it turns out that it's a concept album about a river that runs through where Lithuania now is, and it's sung in Old Prussian, which is like the ancient lost language of the area. And it's kind of about like this area of Europe before the current borders existed. So it's, I mean, this is all about kind of like ethnic heritage and stuff. It also has a symbol here that might be a swastika. So it's one of these things again where it's like, is this a sort of ancient pre-Christian sort of thing, or is it flirting with fascism, or is there even a difference? But I liked it so much musically that I got their recent album also, which is Uka. It's based more on, this is about a god of light, and this is the first album where they've incorporated electronic elements, some drum machines and some synthesizers into this kind of like dark folk sound. Now I am of the opinion that like using these kind of volkish symbols and strategies within art and within music is not the same as using them within politics. But some people hugely disagree with me, and I'll let it be up to you. But the band's name is Romowe Rikoito. All right, so if you think that that inclusion was a bit sketchy, then let's move on to something that is definitely wholly innocent, and that is a band called Building Instrument, who are from Bergen. Now, full disclosure, the main vocalist and songwriter from Building Instrument was a friend of mine. I say was, not because we ever fell out or anything, but just because since I moved up here to Tromsø and there was COVID and everything, I think I've only seen her, spoken to her once. But if we met, I'm sure, she would probably still consider me a friend. Anyway, Building Instrument are a trio. They put this album out in what year? 2014, and this is their debut, called Building Instrument. It's this kind of beautiful, electronic, jazzy, kind of combination of sounds. Mari, the singer, has this very kind of unique voice. Very melodic, almost bell-like. The drummer's very creative, and then they have like synth layers, and Mari plays an omnichord and also a harp. If you like stuff like Cocktail Twins or like 4AD music in general, you will probably enjoy this. This is probably my favourite album by them, Kem som kan leva. This was originally made for an art gallery in just outside Oslo. They made it as a kind of custom work, and then they played it live there, and then they recorded it. It's just beautiful. Bonus info, Mari also has a solo album. Mari Kvern Brunvoll is the name of the album and the artist. This is a photograph on the cover of where her studio is in Bergen, and this is a loop station and vocals album. So it's live recordings of her looping up her vocals. Back in 2012, she's sampling and looping her vocals and playing like kazoo and some other little instruments, and manipulating the sounds It probably doesn't sound great, but I can promise you it's really good. Building Instrument, 2,645 monthly listeners. Okay, so I did promise some heavy music. We did the punk band at the beginning, and now we're going to do a progressive black metal band. This is a band called Ershetu, I guess they're called. 412 listeners monthly. It's a French and Norwegian collaboration making progressive black metal with a conceptual core where every album is about death, and it's about how different mythologies or folklores approach death. So their first album, which was called Zibala, came out in 2023, and this was based around Mayan folklore. The guy who started the band is somebody called Void, and he is like responsible for the concept and the lyrics. But there's a composer called Saker who makes the music or writes a lot of the music. They also have Vinsval from Blut aus Nord, which is one of my favourite ever black metal bands, playing guitar and bass on this album. Now, Zimbala is this Mayan thing. It's based around the Popol Vuh and some kind of ancient ideas about death and the afterlife. This album, I have to admit, I don't love. It has a guy called Lars Nederland, who I don't know, on vocals, doing this kind of almost like Viking metal singing, very almost like operatic. This is not my thing in general. And the sound is very kind of triumphant. It is a bit Viking metal-esque. It's a good album, but stylistically this is not really for me. If you like that kind of thing, like if you like recent Enslaved releases, you might really like this album. But the reason I wanted to talk about them is that the second release from last year, Yomi or Yumi, I don't know how you say it, Japanese, this is based on the notion of kami, which is a being in Shinto, which is both good and bad. It's about Japanese folklore, the Shinto religion, and death within this religion. And this idea of the duality of life, of good and bad, being combined is a very common theme within black metal. But the guy from Blut aus Nord, Vindesval, he is way more involved in the music on this record, including he does the lead vocals, which is this kind of screeching, screaming sound that you will know if you know Blut aus Nord. And also within the music on Yomi, they have incorporated Japanese folk instruments. Now, I don't know if all of it is live instrumentation, or it sounds like some of it is and some of it is samples, but the way they work it into this kind of black metal and sort of epic metal sound is really original and really creative. And I definitely recommend, if you're going to listen to Ershetu, start with Yomi, because this album's just very unique and really interesting. We are going to end on a jazz artist and the only American entry. This is a guy called Reggie Washington. Now, Reggie Washington has 207 monthly listeners on Spotify, and when I followed him on Instagram, he followed me right back. So I guess we can say that this guy is not famous. He is a bass player, and he plays like kind of some sort of more contemporary kind of jazz music on an electric bass. But the album that I absolutely love by him came out in 2018. It's an album called Vintage New Acoustic, and the whole thing is based around the sound of the upright bass. Now, a lot of it is just Reggie on his bass with a drummer or percussion. But then it will suddenly like burst into a section with piano and with saxophone. There's also like a blues type track that has some organ on it. But a lot of it you can really hear like the sounds of the like neck of the bass and the strings, and he's really kind of playing with the sounds that the body of the instrument makes. It's just so beautiful, and it's like connects you right back to old styles of jazz at the same time as he's doing something really interesting and contemporary and creative with it. A couple of real highlight tracks for me are a track called Afro Blue, which is one of the ones where you really like get to hear the sound of the bass and the physicality of the instrument, and one called Footprints, which is one of these ones where you start with him playing on the bass, and then the drums come in this really kind of cool, like contemporary breaks influenced beat, and saxophone, and it's just beautiful when it opens up. Reggie Washington also is the band leader of a project called Black Lives, who have like 100 more listeners than he does per month on Spotify. They had an album out in 2022 that was called Generation to Generation, and it was kind of a protest album that was connected to Black Lives Matter, the movement. Um, he recruited people from a lot of different places, like some African people, I think some Caribbean people, lots of different places in America, all contributed a song to this project. But then they went out on the road and he put a band together to play this music. I saw this band play at the Jazz Festival in Tromsø and they were amazing. So if you get the opportunity to see Reggie Washington's project Black Lives playing at a festival or playing locally near you, definitely go and see them. Live, they were just killing it, absolutely killing it. And they actually have a new album out that I haven't had an opportunity to listen to yet, but I just discovered that when I was researching for this video. All right, so we got some ambient, we got some punk, we got some jazz, we got some progressive black metal, we've got some neo folk. This is my 7 obscure bands and artists for today. I got a short list up of 20, so I'd like to come back and do this again if you thought it was interesting, but I would also really like it if you hop in the comments and tell me about your favorite obscure band. It could be a band that's been forgotten, it could be a local band to you, it could be a band you just came across online. Let me know, hit me up, let's have a conversation about obscure music, artists who are out there doing it, even though most people don't know that they are doing it. Thanks for now. Take care of yourself.